So glad to see you all here. Welcome, so glad to see you all here. And today we'll introduce you to the empathy movement, empathy circle practice, and the empathy circle facilitator training. So if you like what we're doing today, you can learn how to facilitate it. My name's Kathy Kidd. I started these circles a little bit over a year ago, and I was hooked from the beginning, and it's really helped me be a better listener. And it's a great community. So I've met, some people here that I feel very connected to. And the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy has a vision for making mutual empathy a primary world value. More empathy in the world will foster greater well-being. And there are many empathy projects going on. We have a website, a social media community, the empathy tents, where you go to different venues and invite people to come in and share different points of views or just get empathy. And then, of course, we have the facilitator trainings so that you can facilitate an empathy circle. And we found it to be the best gateway practice for learning deep listening and empathy skills. And it's also an empathic way of being. I missed for a couple of months during the summer. I definitely noticed a difference in my being, my mindfulness, my ability to listen. So it's a great practice, ongoing. And we're working up to scale. We're working to scale up and train all 8 billion people in the world to take part in and facilitate an empathy circle. So it's a grand vision. And for the reason that we believe it will contribute to the well-being of humanity. So I'm going to tell you the outline for today, and then we will introduce ourselves. Let's see, Edwin, is there something I can show that shows the outline to everybody?
I don't have that handy. Usually I have that set up. You just
Okay, I'll just go through it. Yeah. So as soon as I finish the telling you what we'll be doing today, then we'll introduce ourselves. That'll be the welcome or the participant introductions. Then we'll talk about the training because there's some new people here. We'll give you time to ask any questions, just a short amount of time to ask questions. Then we'll do show an empathy circle. But since there's some experienced people here and some that are new, we'll probably just go straight into the empathy circles. And then we'll come back to debrief how that went for you and tell you next steps that you might want to take. So, Larry, would you like to facilitate the introductions?
Sure, be happy to. So I'll just go around the circle. I'll start by saying that I'm Larry. I live in Florida. I'm a retired occupational therapist, and I absolutely love the empathy circles. And I don't get any toaster or reward for saying that. I really love the empathy circles. So Bill, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Bill Filler. I've been working with Edwin on the empathy circle intent for about 5 years. And I'm a retired special education teacher living here in the San Francisco Bay Area, Northern California. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Jonathan, would you introduce yourself?
I also put the question in the chat. So name, location, why you're interested in the empathy circle.
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm studying the empathy circle movement to see how the process can be used in local politics in Vallejo.
Thank you, Jonathan. Chad, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Chad. I'm kind of near Green Bay, Wisconsin. Decided to go back to school at a older age, and I'm studying psychology now. I'm interested in empathy, kind of partly because I'm also interested in personality, and empathy is kind of a facet of personality. Unlike most other facets, it's interesting that empathy is something that you can actually grow and change. So that's what I'm hoping to learn more about.
Thank you, Chad. Valerie, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Valerie. Let me just turn my camera on. I'm Valerie, and I'm here in New Westminster, British Columbia in Canada. And I love empathy circles because I find that they are health renewing and they sort of help us to have continuity in terms of our community and sense of community.
Thank you, Valerie. Sally, would you introduce yourself, please?
Morning. I'm eating my breakfast. I'm from Kathy's Valley, and it's between UC Merced and Yosemite National Park. And I'm just working on this. I've been doing it for almost 3 years.
Thank you, Sally. Hyacinth, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name's Hyacinth. I'm originally from Massachusetts, like the Metro West area, but I'm in Middletown, Connecticut at school. And my friend actually told me about empathy circles and said that she thought I'd be really interested. I love listening. I want to improve those skills. And I think just as a young person right now, really want to build a community of empathy with the people and peers around me.
Thank you, Hyacinth. And Lisa, you just joined. We're just doing introductions, just your name, where you're calling from, a little bit about you, of why you're interested in the Empathy Circle, just a very brief introduction. If that would be okay with you, would you do that?
Sure, of course. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm originally from Rhode Island. I live in Chicago right now. I'm a second-year law student. Just started a restorative justice class, and somebody who I had met through that class had told me about this group. So here I am, hoping to learn more and be part of the restorative justice movement, community, etc.
Welcome, Lisa. And Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself? Or maybe you already.
Yes. Well, I don't know what else to say. Kathy from Houston, Texas. I'm a therapist, and these have improved my skills, and I was already a really good listener. So yeah, you can still improve even if you're a really good listener. So.
And we have this brand new guy in the room today named Edwin. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, yeah, thanks. Edwin Rutch from the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. I'm in El Cerrito, California, which is near Berkeley. And I just find the Empathy Circle the best sort of a gateway practice, which Kathy mentioned, for learning empathy skills. And I find it's really great for sort of like therapy type counseling, for really listening, developing your listening skills, as well as for conflict mediation. So if you can bring a conflict into an empathy circle, it can really help. So yeah, I just trying to spread it as widely as possible. Thanks.
Did I miss anyone?
Lisa came in a little late.
And Lisa did introduce herself. So
Okay.
I think we're all checked in.
All right, great.
Back to you, Kathy.
Okay, good. So now Bill is going to review the training site with us.
Okay. Okay, hope you can all see that. Let's see here. Get a little bit more real estate there. There we go. Okay, so this is the site, and there are some happy participants. Let's see, I'll put that up there so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so if you want, when you go there, you can take a look. There's a lot of resources. Here's a more in-depth video about the training. Again, as said before, our vision is to bring this practice to the whole world, so people have it as a toolbox in their repertoire. It's open source, so you can do, it's a very simple, as Edwin said, the basic, gateway towards exploring listening and empathy. So you can use it and incorporate it into something that you're doing. If you want to go in, we charge a registration fee. That's a sliding scale. But there's a lot of work in order to just do all of the nuts and bolts of registration. If you want to take it also, there's 2 Empathy Circle prerequisites. So come to one of these cafes. This is one already. And the training is a 5-session, 2.5-hour course that occurs weekly, either on Mondays or Saturdays. Our next cohort, I believe, is what, the 24th Mondays or Saturdays?
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, as you go to the bottom, you'll see the information. You can see that. And we do ask that you come because the course, the numbers and things like that, if they alter. So if you want to take it, please honor your commitment. Also, there's a little bit, we have a buddy call each week, and if you can facilitate an empathy circle and a few other things, but about half an hour to an hour. So we do give certificates of completion to everyone that attends all the training sessions. These are not the same as college, CEUs. Hopefully someday we will have that, but we don't have it right now. But you can definitely get a certificate. And we also want to build a supportive community. So as we've trained people, we've been doing this since March of 2020. We have a nice support group for people from all over the world. As you go down here, you can start to see it's not the Saturdays. The next one is Monday, October 24th. It starts. But we are always having them. So if there's not, you can't make one, just wait a while, attend a few cafes, another one will come up. And I believe that's it. Any of the trainers or Edwin would like to add anything to do that, or any kind of just, brief questions? I'd be happy.
I would add, there's a whole training path. You take the training for 5 weeks, then you can take it again and again and again. So the second time you take it, you become a trainee and you learn how to become a trainer of the training as well. So you take it 5 times and you can then become a trainer of it, and use it on your own or join us to train us in some of our cohorts. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Thanks, everyone. All right, I'm going to describe an empathy circle for those who are new. So a circle has usually 3 to 5 people with a facilitator, an experienced facilitator. And so there are 4 roles. The facilitator manages the circle, and there is the active listener. There is the person who, there's the active listener and the speaker. So the speaker speaks and the active listener reflects what they've heard. And you want to speak like one idea and pause so that it gives the person listening a chance to reflect back and not get too lost in what's being said. It also helps you to slow down with your thinking. And then everyone else in the circle are the silent listeners, and that's still very active. You're really holding the space and completely present and giving the speaker your attention. So, and if the person listening feels like, that too much is being said, you can, say, pause, let me reflect that. Or the facilitator may pause somebody for you. And the important thing to remember about the circles is that when it's the speaker and the listener, no one else is making any comments. The person listening doesn't make any agreements, doesn't ask a question. All they're doing is, reflecting back what they've heard. And the reason for that is because the person speaking can really get involved in their process of thoughts, and we don't want to interrupt that. So I think that's basically it. You've got the speaker, the listener, and then everyone else is a silent listener and the person who facilitates the circles. Make sure you speak in small chunks so the listener can reflect back. And we want to make sure nobody's asking questions, making comments, disagrees or agrees with what's being said. You're just strictly listening and reflecting. And so, did I leave anything out? Anybody want to add anything to that?
Just briefly, yeah, you really complete, but you can respond when it's your turn to speak. So when it's your turn to speak, you can also go off topic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we do have like a 3 to 5 minutes time whatever the circle decides. And yeah, I was going to say something else, but I forgot
I
it.
just, I put into the chat is a 1-page PDF, and then there's a more extensive video on the how-to that you can watch later.
Yeah, yeah. The best way is the experiential, which you'll get, in just a moment. That's how you really learn it. And the facilitator will guide you also. So are we ready to break
Yeah,
out
we
into
just want to
circles?
set our topic, which is why are you interested in empathy, movement, these circles, and the training, or whatever is alive for you. You can always speak about what's on your mind. I created 2 breakout rooms. So one will be in this main room here. And then I created a second room, which will be Bill, Jonathan, Larry, Lisa, and Sally. And see somebody drop out. Yeah, they did. So maybe Jonathan, if you're feeling comfortable facilitating, you could facilitate the second room with Bill's support. Does that work for you? Or you feel ready?
Yes, I have my timer
Okay,
up,
great.
and I'm glad to be here today.
Okay, so I will open the rooms, and here
So
we
we do
go.
want to do 5 minutes today?
Yeah, I think that we're 5 per group, so I think we can do
Right.
about 5 minutes. I put it into the chat. Oh, let me put it into the chat too, so you have it handy. And then we're going to go for about an hour and 15 minutes, and then I'll send a 10-minute notice before we come back to the main room. We'll have about 15 minutes debrief. So here we go. I thought maybe Valerie would facilitate this room. Do you feel up to that?
Oh, yeah, thank
Okay,
you. I
great.
think I popped out and popped back in, so I'm not sure if I missed something.
No, we just broke out, and we thought those who have learning to facilitate might want to facilitate and get some practice.
Okay, yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Edwin.
Yeah,
Um,
and we're doing 5 minutes. I don't know if you heard that part.
I did. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome everyone to Empathy Circle. So you've been introduced to how we actually do the circle. And just to say it again, just to sort of reinforce it, it's going to be demonstrated for you as well. But there's going to be a speaker and a listener, and everyone who's not speaking or listening is going to be holding this space. And so the topic, I understand, is why are you interested in the empathy movement or empathy circles or training or whatever is alive for you? And whatever is alive for you just basically means that you can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm certainly going to, because it adds to sort of the breadth of empathy blocks and why empathy is important. So we can get started. I'm going to keep time as facilitator. We're at 5 minutes, and who would like to be the first? Edwin, you're gonna have to, who's gonna be the first speaker? Is that right? I'm first listener?
And you're the first listener. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to listen first. Who would volunteer to be the first speaker, please? Kathy? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I will listen, and I will keep time.
Okay, all right. So what do I want to talk about? My sister just got back from Israel, and it's so interesting when I know so much about the world and different cultures and stuff. It's interesting when somebody is so turned on by learning about a different culture.
So your sister just got back from Israel, and you know a lot about different cultures and so forth, and you just think it's really interesting when people are interested in learning about other cultures.
Yes, and I couldn't really pay full attention because it's like this is nothing new to me. So I had some stuff I needed to write and do, so I was doing that while I listened to her.
Oh, okay. So it was all sort of new to you, but you were writing and listening as you were speaking to her.
Well, it was new to her, not to me.
It was new to her, not to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and I just couldn't give her my full attention. Uh, it was like what she knows, because she has this new information. She thinks everybody else needs this new information.
So you were having difficulties sort of giving her your full attention. And you also felt that because it was new for her, she had this sort of want and desire to share this new information with others.
Well, she had a desire to share as if she was educating.
So her desire to share came across as educating.
A desire, yeah, exactly. And the only way I could be present was to be doing something else. So I figured that was better than nothing.
So the way that you sort of helped yourself bring yourself back into presence was to sort of do other things a little bit and not just sit directly and try to pay attention.
Yeah. And she kind of is that way. She thinks because she learned something and it's new to her that, oh, everybody has to know about this.
So you're saying that your sister is kind of like that when she learns something new and she gets really excited about it, she just wants everyone else to learn about it. And she thinks everyone else is as interested as she is in learning the thing.
Well, she thinks that nobody else knows this either. If it's new to her, it must be new to everybody else.
So she also has this assumption that if it's new to her, that it's also new to other people.
Yeah.
To inform other people.
Right. And one of the things we do at Empathy Circles with new people is people who have done it before model it.
So one of the things we do in Empathy Circles is that when there's new people, is that the people who've done it before model it.
Right. And so I've been speaking in small chunks.
So you're demonstrating here that you're emphasizing that you've been speaking in small chunks.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things also is that we speak until we're heard to our satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. And you're also emphasizing that we speak until we're heard to our satisfaction.
Right. So there's been a couple of things you've said that weren't quite right. And I still said it so that you could repeat it back to me like I wanted it repeated back.
Mm-hmm. So there was some things that when I had reflected that I didn't say exactly as you, so that you would feel understood. So you clarified that for me.
Yes, I clarified it so that I could feel understood.
Mm-hmm. And you clarified it so that you could feel understood as the speaker.
Right. And some people really like to hear it repeated back pretty much like they said it.
Mm-hmm. And so some speakers like to hear back their reflection like pretty much verbatim, like the way that they actually said it, their words.
Yes. And when I was first doing Empathy Circles and did that, it felt so awkward.
And so when you first started Empathy Circles and you were doing the process, it just felt really sort of unnatural and awkward.
Oh, really unnatural. Yes, that's very, very true.
Yep. The unnatural was a good word that I used there.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. So I share that because I had so much anxiety. So if anybody here who's new has anxiety, most of us, if not all of us, have been there.
So that created a little bit of anxiety for you, and for anyone else who has experienced anxiety can kind of like relate to that.
Yeah, only it was a lot of anxiety.
When it was tons of anxiety.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, and now I will be the speaker and I choose my listener. So Edwin, would you please listen?
Listening.
Okay, great. We'll start the time. Okay, so I really love talking about sort of the systems that we have in our world that are kind of what I interpret as real blocks to empathy.
So what you like to talk about is just the systems in the society that block empathy.
Yeah, and I think some of the topics are really difficult because as humans, we're really identified under these systems, and it can be uncomfortable to sort of talk about them in a way that's sort of objective.
And talking about these systems can be awkward or uncomfortable because it's just sort of inbred in the system. It's hard to talk about them.
Yeah, and we tend to be really sort of identified. And so for instance, like one of the systems that I talk about that I always find brings up all kinds of discomfort with some people is the system of patriarchy.
So we're just sort of embedded in these systems, and one system is patriarchy, that people feel uncomfortable talking about it.
Yeah, and I think it's because part of it has sort of built in this sort of idea that it's a gender war and patriarchy represents males and the oppressed are the females, and there's some kind of war happening.
Yeah, maybe some of the discomfort is people see it as a battle between the genders, and that they see it that as a problem.
Yeah, and how I really see it is that patriarchy is a system, it's not a gender. And so it actually affects like all genders.
And you're seeing patriarchy not sort of gender related, but really a system that affects all different genders.
Yeah, and I think that the system of patriarchy, the way that it's designed, top down, capitalism, a linear line from birth to death, that this really creates a lot of anxiety in society and is actually a block to empathy.
So that hierarchical system, sort of a top down system, causes a lot of is a real block to empathy in society.
Right, because I think there's a lot of rhetoric that is sort of within the system that is put out there in the world as if it's just colloquial understanding of how we're supposed to function as human beings.
And there's a language that's just sort of colloquial language that people just sort of accept as that's how we're supposed to be in the society.
Right. And when it comes to like intimate relationships or when it comes to age, like I find these particular sort of understandings in our society are very, very skewed and very, very sort of very skewed for a very specific outcome that is generated by a patriarchal rhetoric.
Okay, so there's this patriarchal rhetoric and it affects the culture, and it's kind of skews the culture maybe in its benefit or in its direction or
Yeah,
like
especially in interpersonal relationships, in intimate relationships, as well as jobs and competitions between in-group, out-group, and all these types of the way that we relate to each other as human beings.
And you see this is really relating to a lot of different ways that we relate to each other with in-groups, out-groups. It just has a lot of different manifestations in society. And you see this as sort of the root of it.
Yeah,
this
because
problem.
I think that when it's kind of shaped in a certain way as a directive, there's a lack of organic experience that every particular human being has. And I think that if we look at our organic experience, it actually is empathic.
And you're seeing that our organic natural state is maybe empathic, and that this system sort of inhibits that natural state.
Yes, especially when it sort of breeds competition and sort of puts like hypersexualizes our society and a lot of competition. It's sort of like what is central to our society as human beings is empathy, and yet we're told it's something completely different in all these ways.
So the society says that what's important is competition and this hypersexualization, and you're really seeing that is in contrast to sort of an empathic way of being.
Yeah, I just have a few seconds left, so I'll leave it there. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Edwin. I fully heard.
Right, I'll speak to Chad then. And you're muted.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. I see it not so much as patriarchy as authoritarianism, and empathy as sort of being in opposition.
Okay, so you see it as not only patriarchy, but patriarchy and authoritarianism being in opposition to empathy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different manifestations of an authoritarian hierarchical, sort of a system. And so that's the term I use. I see that problem with patriarchy. It puts it all on it is inherently a gender term. And I think the authoritarianism just takes it out of a gender discussion.
Right. So there's a lot of flavors of authoritarianism, patriarchy just being one of them. And that kind of just speaks to it in a broader sense that's not so gender diverse or gender combative.
Yeah, exactly. And so the empathy circle that we're doing here, I see it as one of the values I'd say is sort of a sense of equality, in that everyone gets heard to their satisfaction. So there's not like one expert here, like, hey, I'm the expert, I'm sort of dominating the whole discussion. It's like everyone gets heard and understood to their satisfaction and has, more or less equal time.
Right. So one of the great things about the empathy circle is that it is equal. Everyone gets their turn to speak. There is no expert, and we all have the same experience.
And I think that, it's an equalizing process. And I think it has huge benefits in terms of, I know you're studying psychiatry or to be a psychiatrist, that's kind of like the core of therapy, is people need to be heard and understood, and it has a healing aspect to it. So when we're just heard and understood by someone, it kind of reduces stress, feels good, and I think it's just a healthy way of being.
Right. So practicing empathy, making sure that you are heard and others know that you have heard them. It's really kind of a core thing, especially with therapy and those, seeking to become psychologists.
And also in mediation, I think the other new person in the other group was interested in restorative justice. And the empathy circle, I think, is the core of any sort of restorative justice. I call it restorative empathy process, because we want to restore an empathic connection and understanding between people. And the circle is core. A core practice for doing that.
Right. So this circle is a core practice in empathy and restorative justice.
Mm-hmm. And the part that I like the term restorative empathy.
Empathy.
That we restore, we're trying, with the empathy circle, we're trying to restore an empathic relationship with people. The problem with restorative justice, it doesn't say what it's trying to restore. Whereas if we say restorative empathy, we're saying we want to restore an empathic connection.
Okay, so restorative justice it's a little vague on what it's restoring, but restorative empathy, we know that we're restoring empathy.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Yeah.
All right, great.
Okay, so that's fine. That's just 3.5 minutes, but that's totally fine. Chad, would you please select your listener?
Hyacinth.
Great.
All right, now I need to know what to talk about. All right, why am I interested in the empathy movement? All right. My interest in empathy is related to my interest in psychology and personality.
So your interest in empathy is related to your interest in psychology and understanding personality.
That's right. And when I've studied personality, I've come to find out that a lot of personality traits are kind of ingrained and very difficult to change.
And something that you've found out from studying personality is that so much is really ingrained, and that makes it difficult to change.
That's right. And empathy is kind of like personality, but one thing that I've noticed is, as we see here, it is possible to train and grow your empathy.
And something that you've noticed is that empathy is like personality, but there's a difference in the way that it can be grown and changed.
Right. So that's kind of an interesting part, and what I hope to learn more about. So.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's something that is interesting to you about empathy, that it can change, and it's something that you want to learn more about.
Right. So I've started working on a research project with one of the professors. She's studying empathy, and she met up with Edwin and did one of these empathy circles, and now we're going to do a study with it.
Oh, great. So you were able to begin this work with a researcher on empathy, and that is what brought you to Edwin and this movement.
Yeah. How much time I got?
Oh, you're only at like not even 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, I mean, you don't have to go on, but I mean, you still you have time to explore if you'd like to.
Okay. I would just kind of be pushing it right now. I don't know. Oh, all right.
Also,
Yeah, I
hold, if
think-
you want to just sit in silence, we can hold silence for you. That's also an option.
Oh, okay. That sounds more awkward than me talking. Let's do it. Mm. All right, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful reflection. Hyacinth, would you like to select your listener?
Sure. Is there anyone who hasn't listened yet? Or can I can choose anyone?
You can choose anyone. So
Okay.
everyone's on. Yeah.
Kathy hasn't listened though.
Okay, Kathy.
Oh.
No, it was Valerie hasn't listened. Who spoke? Who's the first? Oh yeah, Kathy spoke first, so she
Right.
hasn't listened. Yeah.
Thank you, Edwin.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind listening, Valerie, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to be here. I think at first I was definitely feeling some nerves, but now kind of getting into things, I'm feeling more comfortable.
At first you were feeling nervous about being here, and now that you're part of what we're doing and seeing it, you're feeling more comfortable.
Yeah. And I definitely appreciate that this space exists. And I'm just really excited to learn more.
You appreciate that this exists and you're excited to learn more.
Yeah. I found out about this through a friend who is also a partner that I have through like a fellowship program. So based on my project, she sent this to me because she thought I'd be interested.
Mm-hmm. Partner friend thought you'd be interested in this and shared it with you.
Yeah. And for my project, for my fellowship, I'm focusing on understanding why cancel culture happens and why calling out online exists, and what that teaches young people about accountability and forgiveness and understanding how we exist in this world.
Mm-hmm. So your focus, your fellowship is on cancel culture and the effect that that type of thinking has on young people and how it maybe inhibits their ability to forgive. And you mentioned a couple other things. I didn't quite get them.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, just their ability to forgive and just to have like an understanding about what it means to live in this world.
Not only it affects their ability to forgive, but it has a negative effect on their understanding of the world.
Yeah, and similar to what Valerie was saying earlier, I am very interested in understanding how hierarchy is indoctrinated into us.
It's like Valerie was speaking about, you too are interested in hierarchy and how we are indoctrinated as a result of that.
Yeah, and I also feel that there are so many larger systems that get in the way of us being empathetic towards one another. And I have really started to see a lot of calling out as something that has been blocking that as well.
Mm-hmm. So you see these structures that are being talked about today as blocking empathy, and this calling out culture is also a blocked empathy.
Yeah, so I'm really excited just to learn more from everyone. And I really hope to kind of bring a shift with young people towards the online anger to a more community-based sharing with one another.
Mm-hmm. You're really interested in having this positive influence on young people and moving online communities towards something positive rather than some of the things that you're seeing today.
Yeah, I think getting involved in community partnerships, engaging in conversations with each other, and trying things that feel new and scary are just so important. And I would really like to be a part of influencing that or inspiring that.
Mhm. So you want to see more community building and partnership building online. And that you see that as maybe requiring some vulnerability and courage to be who you are online.
Yeah, I'm feeling very heard.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Edwin, would you be my listener?
Listening.
One thing I've learned to do as a result of empathy circles is to make notes. When somebody's speaking and I remember I want to say something, I don't interrupt them.
So something you've learned is to take notes. You don't want to interrupt people, so you take notes.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll take a note if somebody's said a particular word or a string of words that I want to remember to say back to them.
So you find it helpful to take notes of a word or a string of words that you're wanting to reflect.
Yeah. Because there were some things in the circle that, brought some things to mind. So I was writing them down so I could talk about them.
And while people were talking, you're also taking notes so you remember what you want to talk about.
Yeah. I'm telling myself I want to do this more in my real life.
And you're even thinking of doing this in your everyday life, real life. Take notes about the things you want to talk about.
I do it with my therapy clients most of the time, but I'd like to do it with just my friends and business associates.
And you like to expand it to, when you're talking with friends, with business associates, to take notes there too.
Yeah. So here are the notes that I took. So I've heard patriarchy and authoritarianism. And I tend more to explain things through the eyes of capitalism.
And you've heard authoritarianism being discussed, patriarchy, etc. But you use the frame of capitalism.
And so capitalism is undergirded by greed.
And you're seeing the aspect you're interested in is greed, the core of greed. Yeah,
I see greed as the core of capitalism.
Yeah, the greed is the core of capitalism.
Right. And, this country was founded on greed, theft of land and theft of labor.
And the country is based on greed by the theft of land and labor.
Right. And greed leads to cruelty and genocide.
And you're seeing that greed leads to cruelty and genocide.
And this country was founded with, I can't remember what religion it was, but their belief is that those who have more money and resources, God favors them.
So there was a religion that the country was founded on, which said that people who have more money are people that God has favored.
I believe it was Calvinism.
Yeah.
So, and then I think part of what plays into this is there's belief in scarcity, like there's not going to be enough for me, but I think capitalism drives that.
And there's this underlying premise that there's scarcity, and you're thinking that capitalism drives that notion.
Yeah. Can't share because there won't be enough for me.
And you can't share with people because then there won't be enough for you.
Right. And because we believe work is like pinnacle of success. If you didn't work for something, then you don't deserve anything.
And work is the pinnacle of success. And if you don't have any, you didn't work for it, then you're not worth, it's not worth anything.
There's a lot of wealthy people who did not work for what they had.
And there's a lot of people who are wealthy didn't work for what they have.
Yeah, but they think you should work for what everybody else should work for, whatever they get.
So they say you should work for what you get, but they didn't work for what they got. So you see some kind of a dichotomy there.
Exactly. And well, to me, it's just an excuse to stay privileged.
And that's just a way for them to stay privileged.
And then there is that saying, he who has with the most toys when he dies wins.
And that quote, person with the most toys when they die is the winner.
Right. Yes. But I think it was he.
Oh,
Came out.
He.
Yeah, I think it was he when it came out.
Yeah. And that was the time too. Just saw the time go up.
Yeah.
Okay. Speak to Valerie.
Listening?
Yeah. What do I had some things to say. Usually I take notes too, like Kathy, these ideas pop up and then when it's my turn to speak, I forget what I'm going to say.
You'd like to take notes like Kathy, and usually you do, but then now it's sort of like all these ideas pop up and when it's your turn, it's like drawing a blank.
Yeah, it was something about the cancel culture. I thought that was an interesting topic, cancel culture. Because I see cancel culture is kind of different from empathic culture. I see that sort of opposed.
So one of the ideas that came to you is cancel culture, and you find that cancel culture for you is very different than empathic culture.
So we have this empathy tent that we take out and set up out on the street, and we listen to people, and we've also taken it to political demonstrations where the political left and right sort of battle it out, especially here in Berkeley and California. And so we try to go out and actually listen to the different sides, the political right and the political left.
So yeah, describing this empathy tent where you go out into the public and you actually encourage people from opposing sides, for instance, Democratic, Republican, to share their opposing views.
And we've also been to right-wing rallies like in Sacramento. And there was one that we went to, we set it up, and we actually had 5 people from the Identity Europa group, who are the people who were at Charlottesville with the khakis and tiki torches.
So you went to, I think you said Sacramento. And then there was the group that was I can't remember the name of it.
It was a right-wing Unite the Right rally, and there was a lot of different left political right groups there.
Right. So there was like sort of extreme ends of like the spectrum, left and right. And so this one group that was, known or seen around the world at Charlottesville, that was the group that was there.
Yeah, it was the whole group, it was on the state capitol, and it was all right-wing group. Like we were the only sort of moderate or what have you people there.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it was like everybody there was right wing, except for the empathy people.
Yeah. And we had the tent, and we had 5 Identity Europa group. They came into the tent, and they're like Holocaust deniers, and one of our team is Jewish. So they were starting to have a discussion about, what does the Holocaust mean? And I said, oh, let's have an empathy circle about that. So we actually brought that discussion into an empathy circle.
So while you were there, you're describing where 5 of the Europa group people came into the tent, and they were Holocaust deniers. And one of the people on our empathy team is Jewish. And so what you decided is, how about have an empathy circle around these differences?
Well, anyway, the short of it is that they were struggling at first with it, but then they started getting the hang of how to do an empathy circle. So I see cancel culture is you cancel them, say, you're no good, you're bad, you're whatever, we're gonna, dox you, we're gonna do all this kind of stuff. And the other approach is, hey, come into this empathy circle and let us teach you how to do empathy. So we were teaching them how to take part in empathy circles. Yeah.
So you're really seeing a difference here, what you were saying in terms of like empathy circle and cancel culture, which is like, even if at first it's really difficult or a little bit just different way of communicating in the empathy circle method, that what you saw with that group, the right wing group, is that eventually they did get it. And so the whole idea, what you're thinking, is that with cancel culture, they don't have that method. And so it's just like, it's very oppositional, and there's really no space for dialogue there, or no structure or method.
Yeah, and both sides are trying to cancel each other, right? So it's not like, hey, one side's trying to, everybody, the polarized groups are trying to cancel each other. And what we try to do is go out and listen to both sides, or all the sides, and then try to bring them into an empathy circle so they can actually listen to each other.
So you're talking about where like opposing sides in cancel culture really want to like cancel each other. And the idea is almost like warlike, but what Empathy Circle does is to take those opposing sides and actually have some kind of bridge and some kind of understanding.
And there was a documentary called Trump Phobia. Oh, I'll stop there. Hopefully heard.
All right, thank you. That was fun. Okay, Hyacinth, would you please listen?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm just going to take 5 seconds. So I really liked what sort of like what Kathy was saying, brought up something in me that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, so there was something that Kathy said that was bringing something up for you that you would like to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that so the authoritative system that we are under and inculcated with and support and find very difficult to sort of even to observe and to look at, I think has some very is rooted in something that is very, very hidden.
Yeah, so you think that the authoritative system and structure that we have to live under and even support is rooted in something that's very hidden.
And what's really hidden, I think, is being brought out by this empathy circle.
And you feel like this empathy circle is bringing out what's been hidden.
Right, and that's what is hidden is our essential truth of who we really are as human beings.
And what is hidden is the essential truth and the core of who we are as humans.
Yes. So although I won't disagree with Kathy in the sense of, greed being a large part, sort of how capitalism functions, it doesn't necessarily have to function that way.
So you don't disagree that greed is a part of how capitalism functions, but you also recognize that it doesn't necessarily need to function that way.
Yeah, and I think that really at the core, I think what is missing is our connection with ourselves.
And at the core, you feel that it's a disconnection from ourselves. That is missing.
That's missing. And what you were saying earlier, Hyacinth, about talking and having dialogue about things that we are uncomfortable talking about, and to actively do things that we're uncomfortable with is just so important.
Yeah, and you're also feeling that having dialogue and engaging in things that feel uncomfortable is actually very important.
Yeah, and I mean, even Chad saying, it's going to be really uncomfortable to take some silent time, but I'm going to do it, and just like trying to, just to try something new.
Yeah, and even Chad doing something new by saying, this is going to be uncomfortable or awkward to be in silence, but I'll do it.
Yeah, so I think that authoritative system, like for instance, like one of the things that it does is it disconnects us from ourselves, and it seems to do a really good job with young men.
So something you're noticing is that authoritative systems do a really good job at disconnecting ourselves from who we are and from the core of who we are. And that's something that's been very vulnerable to young men.
Yeah, I think, because of just, wanting to make soldiers out of them, wanting to sort of, sort of almost obliterate their connection from their own emotions, which, emotions, in my view, is the absolute core of who we are and is the basis upon which we experience empathy.
So a huge problem with the authoritative systems impact on young men is disconnecting them from their emotions or making them soldiers.
Yeah, and I think that, males hold so much power in society. And I think there's probably some feminists that wouldn't like to hear me say that, but I mean, I think that they do, and so do women in our own way. But I think that when men are stripped of their real power, or males are stripped of their real power, then we have this sort of chaotic situation in which the lack of acknowledgement of our emotions creates just a very violent and horrible existence. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, so when men are divorced from their real power, from their emotions, it creates a very violent and aggressive society.
Thank you very much, Hyacinth. I feel fully heard.
Thank you.
Now it's your turn to select the listener.
Chad, would you be willing to listen?
I want my space bar work. Oh, there we go. Okay.
So firstly, I'm feeling really appreciative and amazed and impressed by just this whole circle and what everyone's contributed.
So initially, the first thing you like to say is that you are just impressed, amazed, and you're just really enjoying this whole experience.
Yeah, and I had experience with restorative justice circles in a class I took last fall.
You had an experience with restorative justice circles in a class you took last fall.
And what Edwin was saying about kind of like the vagueness around that term actually really reminded me of my experiences in those circles.
What Edwin was saying about the vagueness of restorative justice as a term really reminded you of those circles.
Yeah, because in those circles, it felt a little unclear of what our purpose was there, what we were trying to get at. Even though we had this honor of being together in this space, it was a little unclear what we were working towards.
So you felt honored to be part of the circle, but it was kind of unclear what you were all trying to do.
Yeah, so I really love the term like restorative empathy. And that's definitely something I'll be thinking about and crediting you on.
So restorative empathy is a phrase that you prefer, and you'll definitely be using that and plugging Edwin's name in there.
Yeah, but to touch on some other things that have been said, I really love the idea of jotting down notes as you're listening. I'm someone who a lot of like things can pop into my head, and I don't want my assumptions or my judgments or my initial thoughts to overtake what someone's sharing.
Right. So you like the idea of taking notes because you have a lot of things popping in your head and you don't want your, knee-jerk reactions or thoughts to interfere with what's being said.
Yeah, I also love the thought of kind of having like a notebook of the ideas that remind me of the people in my life. I feel like that reflects like a lot of care and intention in connecting with people.
The idea of having a notebook with, the people in your life that you care about and would be really kind of something meaningful to you.
Yeah, so I'm feeling very inspired, and I think I feel very hopeful that there are people like all of you who are engaging in this work and have a really incredible dream and mission.
So this whole experience has left you feeling inspired and hopeful, and you really appreciate this group and mission.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything. I'm feeling fully heard. Thank you.
Okay, so Chad, would you please select your listener?
Oh no, Edwin.
Listening.
All right. All right, so I guess I'll talk about the authoritative thing and the young men thing, because that was kind of interesting to me.
Do you want to talk about the authoritative and young men topic thing?
Right. And this is just more from personal experience. I'm not so young anymore, but I did serve in the military when I was younger.
And you have served in the military?
And the process of boot camp really is like, you can see this whole process of stripping down your emotions and breaking it down your complete identity, like an actual, physical form. You can see that happening.
And in when you took boot camp, you could see how people were stripped down to their identity was stripped down.
Right. So the idea that that's happening, in society in a larger scale, less insidiously, but, or less obviously, is definitely something relatable.
So you can relate that society is doing that as well in general.
Right. So yeah, I weirdly felt kind of proud going through the military and all the boot camp and never really changing my personality.
So you really felt proud that your personality didn't change through boot camp.
Right. But, that wasn't great for my military career because, I never really fully bought into this, hoorah, let's, kind of mentality.
So if you didn't buy into that hoorah mentality, which didn't really help your career in the military.
Right. That's right. I will disagree with one thing that was mentioned about saying, and this was probably over broadly speaking, but that men have all the power. I would clarify that a few men have a lot of power. There's a lot of men that are pretty much powerless like everyone else.
Yeah, so you have a different take that it's not like all the men have all the power. It's that a few men have power and most don't have that much.
Right. Yeah, so that's about it on that topic.
Okay, yeah, that's that topic.
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Fully heard, okay. Then speak to Kathy.
I'm listening.
Yeah, in terms of, there's all this stuff about patriarchy, men, women, feminism. And I really see that the solution is empathic relationships.
All of this patriarchy, authoritarianism, you see this solution as being empathy.
Yeah, and the feminism, and the topic that it does seem to me, that to really solve the problem, it's about getting, everyone sort of to the table and talking together like we're doing here. That what we're doing here is the solution. You have men, women, male, female, in the circle. Everybody gets heard by, everyone else. And I just see that that's the solution going forwards.
Much like we're doing here, we have men and women listening to each other. You see the possibility of bringing other men and women together and providing empathy around this topic.
Yeah, so it's in the family. You can have family empathy circles. Larry just mentioned that he had an empathy circle with his daughter and his grandson, and they had some conflict, and he said it was just like this wonderful circle, in their family. And his daughter called him afterwards and said she and her son continue the dialogue, and he was just like really happy about all that.
And so you reminded of getting in the family, and there's a great story you heard from Larry about what a success that was with his daughter and his daughter and grandson. And then the daughter even called him later and said how wonderful it was. And
Yeah, he just mentioned it before the circle today, so it's very fresh. It's exciting to hear stuff like that. It's like positive, constructive relationships going forward. So it's it just feels really good to hear stories like that.
yeah, it's really rewarding for you when you hear a successful empathy story, empathy circle story, how it's contributing to people.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm thinking in terms of the larger movements, like there's a women's movement, for more power, more rights, etc. But it seems to me that all these movements should have empathy. It's like we want mutual empathy is what we're working towards, right? It's usually like, hey, it's my group. We need more power in this society because we don't have it. So it tends to be kind of self-centered versus we want everyone to have to be heard and seen. So I think that the movements could be more empathy movements would be more effective in society.
Well, it sounds like you see some limitations in each group fighting for their rights. And you see more possibility if all of the groups opened up to each other and had empathy for each other. And it was the whole rather than just a part.
Yeah, and I really was interesting to hear what Hyacinth had mentioned about restorative justice, because that was my experience of restorative justice. Is it's like there's a conflict, you bring people together, and it can be helpful for working that through, but it doesn't fit in a larger context. And the larger context that we have is we want an empathic culture, so we're trying to restore an empathic culture.
So much like Hyacinth was saying, you see some limitations in the restorative justice circle. It doesn't work on a larger scale, and you think focusing on empathy is what would be helpful.
And because you can, before the conflict happens, you can already be teaching empathy and an empathic way of being. So if you start teaching these skills, you head off conflicts before they happen. And then when they happen, you've got tools for bringing the relationship, healing the relationship.
Right. So you want to see empathy infused in the culture so that it can head off some conflicts. But if there is conflict, at least those skills are already present to help with the conflict.
Yeah. And I did take notes on what I'm saying now. So yeah, I found that helpful just to take notes. I kind of, maybe it's getting older or whatever. I kind of also start forgetting what I want to say.
Yeah, so you did take notes to help you remember what you wanted to say.
Yeah, so let's see what else. Time. That solves that problem. Yep, I fully heard.
You're just over by like 2 seconds. Totally on time.
Great. So Hyacinth, would you be my listener?
Definitely.
So one of the things I do, learning to do, is go take my view from gallery to speaker. I'm listening to somebody.
So something that you're learning to do with Zoom is switching your perspective from gallery to speaker.
I remembered to do that with Edwin, and this is a new realization for me.
Oh, you remembered to do that when Edwin was speaking, and that was a new realization for you.
Right, and so nobody else was on the screen but Edwin, so I felt like I could be more focused.
And since Edwin was the only one on the screen, you felt you could be more focused.
Yeah, I felt I could be more present.
You felt you could be more present.
Right. And another thing, when I have speaker on, I don't see myself as much, and I'm not tempted to look at myself.
And when you have speaker on, you're just less tempted to look at yourself because you don't have to see yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm vain or what, but I notice myself looking at myself. How am I looking? How's my listening looking?
Yeah, so you're not sure if it's from vanity, but on Zoom, if you can see yourself, you find yourself looking at yourself, wondering, how am I looking? Does it look like I'm listening? And getting caught up in that.
Yeah. So, what else do I want to say? I do know what I want to talk about. I listened to this speaker a couple of weeks ago, and he had these 3 sayings. You don't have to repeat these. Show up, be honest, let go. We can read them. Show up, be honest, let go.
So you listened to the speaker who had these 3 sayings: show up, be honest, let go.
That was the way she lived life.
And that was those 3 sayings were the way that she lived her life.
Yes, and I modified it. I said, I did have 3 of them, but I'll read one at a time. Show up with love and be present.
Show up with love and be present.
Be authentic and vulnerable.
Be authentic and vulnerable.
Trust the process and let go.
Trust the process and let go.
Yeah, and I really loved that, right? This is, to me, this is a way to live.
And you are really loving and resonating those 3 sentiments, and that for you is the way to live.
Mm-hmm. And as I'm thinking about this, I said, love to me represents empathy, but maybe I should put empathy somewhere in here.
And you're feeling that love for you represents empathy, but you're wondering if maybe empathy can fit in somewhere in your reasons.
Yeah. Another thing she said that I really loved, the different way of speaking about intuition. Listen to the whispers.
So she has insight about intuition that you really loved, which was listen to the whispers.
Yeah. And then she talked about synchronicity as quantum flirts.
And synchronicity as quantum flirts was something.
Yeah, I really loved that.
That was something else.
Yeah. Another thing I'm trying to remember when I'm sitting here in front of Zoom, because I do most of my clients by Zoom, is to sit with my palms up on my lap.
And another thing that you are trying to remember and implement as you use Zoom often is to sit with your palms up on your lap.
Yeah. I think I feel fully heard, Hyacinth. Thank you.
Thank you. Edwin, would you be able to listen?
Listening.
I also am trying to kind of figure out Zoom in the best way to stay present with what someone's saying.
And you're also trying to figure out how to use Zoom in the best way when someone's speaking.
Select listener.
She chose me, I thought.
Sorry.
No worries.
I think my internet's I think my internet's not working properly, so I'll turn.
Okay, no problem. Sorry.
You're trying to figure out how to use Zoom effectively.
Yeah. I had mostly Zoom classes a couple years ago, and I also found that I was just like staring at myself the whole time.
Yeah, like Kathy, you're also finding when you're using Zoom that you're looking at yourself all the time.
Yeah, so it's definitely been an adjustment. I think now Zoom feels like such a part of my life, whereas I did not know what that was just like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, you just didn't know what Zoom was, but now it's like really part of your life.
So I think it's really incredible. Like, if I think just about what this tool has brought to my life and what has been made more accessible, and also more difficult, but mostly more accessible.
So you're just kind of astounded at what this tool has sort of brought to your life, how it's made just everything more accessible, or the accessibility that it's brought to you.
Yeah. And I think just in general, like these past few years in the pandemic has been such a shift, at least in my sense of normal and sense of life. And I think even just like the way that we connect with each other is different these days.
Yeah, so since the pandemic and using Zoom, it's really affected how we relate to each other.
Yeah. And I think for me as a young person still trying to figure out life, I think the pandemic definitely exposed like a lot of wounds of this country or just like of this world.
And as a young person, you've just found that the pandemic is just exposed a lot of the problems or wounds in this country or in the world too, for that matter.
Yeah. So I think it's been, I don't even know the right word. It's helped keep me afloat to get involved with this sort of work or looking into like peace and nonviolence work. I think has helped me make sense of kind of what it means to be human in this experience right now.
So checking out peace work and work like this has really helped keep you afloat in a kind of like maybe a chaotic world or.
Yeah. But I think at the root of it, I just love these sort of experiences. I love living life and experiencing life. So I'm so glad that this is also a part of it now.
And there's a real gratitude that this is part of your life because you just really enjoy experiencing life and sounds like events like this or
Yeah, I'm feeling fully heard. Thank you.
Okay. I'll speak back to you then. I was just going to shift topics to what I've been really working on and excited about. So I'm working on a project for defining empathy because there's like a lot of confusion about what empathy is, and I want to lay out at least how I define it.
So you've noticed a lot of just confusion around what empathy is. So a project that you're kind of embarking on is defining what empathy is for you.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different definitions and it adds to a lot of confusion. Those 4 rows of books behind me are books on empathy, and I've interviewed, most of the authors, and the interviews are online. Right now, I want to lay out how I see empathy and kind of designing a training around that.
So there are a lot of different definitions of empathy, which is part of the confusion. And you have a lot of experience learning and reading about empathy and speaking with the people who have also learned and wrote about empathy. So now this project is a chance for you to really define it in your own words.
And we have a group that meets every Friday, and we're developing a 7-week training on it. Like I'm defining empathy as a way of being with different facets. We're going to go into each of the facets.
And this 7-week training has been what you have been working on Fridays to kind of define empathy.
Yeah, and it's that aspect of a way of being. A lot of times empathy is seen as just something like one person empathizes with another, sort of like you would have in therapy, right? As a therapist listens to the client, and it's seen sort of from this individualistic way. But I'm wanting to define it as a more of a general way of being that we are, and in the world. So yeah, that's kind of the focus.
Yeah, so you have an approach to empathy that is more of empathy as a way of being and existing in this world through empathy.
Yeah, it's a way of being sensitive to felt experience, and I'm looking at how to describe it. And a big part is it's non-judgmental, so it's not judging people, it's not canceling people, but really feeling our way into the world, into ourselves and into others.
Yeah, and you really feel that the non-judgmental aspect of empathy is super important, and holding compassion for other lived experiences.
Yeah, I don't use the word compassion because that's like has a whole kind of a complicated definition to it. So it's really I almost see like judgment and and empathy is sort of poles, just like empathy and authoritarianism are sort of poles.
Yeah, so you wouldn't use the word compassion to describe it. That feels like a different word for you, but you see judgment and empathy as being opposites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm like really thrilled. I'm really working intensely on it. I'm really, every day I'm starting to, create a slideshow on it and have a lot of enthusiasm and energy around it.
Yeah, and this is something that's super exciting for you. A lot of energy and heart into this, and you're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I want to make it sort of more of a not a dominant, really a different model out in society compared to the typical affective cognitive model that you always hear about, which I hate those terms, affective and cognitive. These are so academic. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and you're wanting to create like a different model of understanding empathy that's kind of outside of that academic, affective, cognitive terminology and understanding.
Yeah, and again, I guess it's the enthusiasm I want to kind of get out there. Hey, I'm having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, and what you want to put forth is the enthusiasm that this is fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, it's me again. Okay. Valerie, would you be able to listen? I don't know if you're
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm afraid to turn my camera on.
No worries. I'm not sure if I have much to say. I'll think for a moment.
Absolutely. You're just going to take some time.
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite things just to do is to just talk to people that I don't know, whether it's like someone who is helping me with checking out like my groceries, or someone who I happen to be working on for like volunteering at the same time. I just love like striking up conversations with people who I'm meeting for the first time.
So you really enjoy talking to people and meeting new people, whether it's someone that's just like at the cashier, random, that you just like to like meet new people and have new experiences.
Yeah, and I think something that brings me a lot of joy is expressing joy towards other people, and extending a genuine care of like, I want to hold space for you. I want you to feel comfortable sharing your story with me because it genuinely matters to me.
So I'm hearing you sharing that you really like to not only engage but also listen. So you really like to sort of be there and like hear people and sort of share that sort of time and space with them. It makes you feel very joyful to be able to share that kind of joy with someone else.
Yeah, and I think empathy is just so powerful. I feel like in a world that tends to choose violence or aggression or war or dominance as a mean. I'm sorry, because I'm on a very loud street. But yeah, I think, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, empathy is super powerful. And I feel like oftentimes like choosing to understand someone is seen as a weakness.
So you were contrasting like the power of empathy in a world where like violence and aggression and control and all that is sort of mainstream, that what you see is empathy as something very powerful.
Yeah. So I really like the chance to kind of like strengthen that muscle of empathy.
So you like any opportunity you have to actually strengthen that empathy muscle.
Yeah. And I think like right now, especially, it feels so easy to get caught up in like the anxiety and the fear and the, yeah, just those feelings around like the state of the world.
Yeah, it's sort of like how everything is coming at you or people. It's just so easy to just kind of get caught up in like just the negative state of the world and just like be in a state of fear and anxiety.
Yeah. So I think just those opportunities to just connect with people who I have never met before, but I get the chance to share this planet with, really helps kind of bring me back down to, I think, kind of, Valerie, like you were saying, the core of power, which is emotions, and connections and love, I think.
Mhm. So you're kind of finding that when you sort of like, even though you feel like there's this like degree of sort of like this tension in the world, what you like to do to sort of just be in yourself again is to go out and to meet people who are also sharing this space with you, this earth with you, this lifetime with you in this present moment. And that somehow that really just sort of brings you back into this sort of like feeling more comfortable in yourself and more natural.
Yeah, I'm feeling fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just reset the time here. Chad, would you please listen? Okay, just have to turn on your mic. Okay. So I was just actually going to, I think the whole idea of systems is part of it is sort of like we have to acknowledge where we're at in order to sort of like recognize and just to acknowledge, you know, sort of what we're experiencing in this moment.
Right. So one thing when you're studying systems is you need to recognize where everything is at currently and what everyone is experiencing in these systems.
Yeah, but I also really believe that it's one thing to recognize it, and it's another thing to sort of like ruminate on it and sort of then, you know, it's like you just kind of remain in that space, which is not helpful.
Right. So it's one thing to recognize it, but kind of just soaking yourself into it is really not helpful.
Yeah, and I think that sort of the idea, like I think early feminism really was about a collective sort of like, you know, so that women and men, so that there wasn't this sort of extremeness between the genders, but that that there was more of an equal human community.
So early feminism was more about having a community and being equal.
And that included men. And I think that today, especially on internet, you just see sort of like this extreme feminism, which is just, it's not, in my view, the essence of what feminism is all about. It's not about sort of taking this very extreme point of view to sort of like counter another extreme point of view.
Right. So what you're seeing now in modern feminism, especially on the internet, is this more extreme view where it's kind of more polarizing.
Well, I think it's very much sort of put out there as modern feminism, as if that defines modern feminism. I don't think that's modern feminism. I just think that's an extreme version. And I think that unfortunately, feminism as a whole gets a really bad name. And I think that because, you know, it serves certain people to believe that we are still in gender wars to sort of like to make it out as if that there's something wrong with feminist women or to have a feminist perspective.
Okay, so it's being kind of pushed that is modern feminism when it's not really, and it's not helpful. You know, to push this narrative that there is this war going on, and it's kind of benefits the more extreme sides of the argument.
Exactly. And so, and I just wanted to say, I'm not sure if there was a misunderstanding what I had said before about the power, men having so much power. What I was saying was that the true power of men, and they do have a lot of power, and so do women, is in their emotions. So if you strip men of their emotions, they don't have access to their real power.
Okay, so the true power of men is in their emotions, and when you strip that away, you leave them powerless.
Yeah, and I think that when we're disconnected, doesn't matter the gender, sex, it doesn't matter. When we strip people of their emotions, and I see this happening a lot with females these days, women who are very, very disconnected from themselves and very sort of masculine, sort of qualia, if you will, and not even masculine, toxic masculine, sort of like toxic femininity. It's just like, but it's not even any of that. It's just like a real disconnection, because the more disconnected we become from our emotions, doesn't matter who we are, it's just true for human beings. It's like we just become more and more volatile on the outside because we are just experiencing so much volatility on the inside.
Right. So not only are powerless, but when we're taking away that emotion, we are more volatile. And you're seeing this with women too, when they take on, they're kind of stripping away their emotions and taking on more typically toxic male personality traits.
Yeah, and I think that that's really, it's like not categorizing as sort of like, I mean, I do believe in feminine qualia, masculine qualia, and I think that all genders have all of both of those. And I'll stop there. But sorry, I'll just clarify and just say that I just think that our imperative focus really needs to be on really bringing up that which has been buried, I think very purposefully, which is our connection with our emotions. And I'll stop there.
Okay, so really what the most important part is unburying this connection to our emotions. And, yes, there are male and female qualities, but, all of us need to get more in touch with our inner emotions.
Yes, and I'll just say masculine and feminine qualities, not necessarily male and female qualities, but that's okay. You don't have to.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, okay. So you're a listener.
All right. Kathy. And you're on mute.
I'm listening.
All right, I got my palms up. Oh, wait. Let's see here. I don't really think I have much to talk about right now.
I'm sure you have much to talk about.
That is right. Oh, it's not a conversation. That's right. One thing I found interesting is that Edwin puts both authoritarianism and judgment as opposing empathy. And I suppose that could mean that, maybe there's some connection between authoritarianism and judgment, which, I'm sure there is, because it's hard to be an authority if you're not judging who's, following correctly or not.
Mm-hmm. So when Edwin was talking about authoritarianism and judgment, you connected that, and that being on one end of the scale and empathy on the other, you connected that, yeah, if you're authoritarian, you are judging other people.
Right. And that's kind of funny because I don't consider myself authoritarian at all. I'm kind of a, creative, free thinker kind of person, but I can unfortunately be kind of judgy.
Mm. You see yourself as creative and a free thinker, and you also know you can be judgy. And so it sounds like you're wondering about what that relationship is to authoritarianism in your life.
Right. So just something interesting to think about. And I really do think, building empathy is probably, one of the best things that you can do.
So in thinking about all of this, you also are thinking that building empathy is the best thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. No matter how you define it.
Or how it's defined.
Right. I happen to like the cognitive and emotional empathy, but I'm also in school right now. So
Right. So because of school, you think because of school that's why you like cognitive and emotional empathy.
right. Yeah, that's all I got for now. I feel fully heard.
Okay, great. You feel fully heard. Thank you, Chad. Oh, let me go from speaker to gallery. Let's see. Edwin, would you be willing to be my listener?
Listening.
Okay, so in thinking about empathy and definitions, I think it's great that Edwin is working toward that.
You appreciate that or you actually think it's great that I'm working towards those definitions.
Yes, and I'm just looking at my notes. Hyacinth mentioned the pandemic exposed a lot of wounds in our country and the world. And I'm just very appreciative of that point of view from a young person.
Yeah, you're just appreciating the point of view that Hyacinth had about that the pandemic showed a lot of the wounds in the country.
Yes, I really would like to hear more from young people about what they think.
And you have real curiosity and would like to hear more from young people about their thoughts.
And so in the Peace Alliance, we joke that everybody in the peace movement is over 50. And we're going to be dying out pretty soon.
Yeah, there's a joke. You're a part of the Peace Alliance, peace movement, and there's a joke that everybody in that movement's over 50 and you're going to be dying out soon.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering that, are we relevant, right? Or do young people, are they interested in different things related to peace, like climate change?
So you're really wondering if the peace movement is relevant and if young people are interested in topics like climate change.
Rather than just general peace building.
Oh, in contrast to peace building. So are they more interested in climate change versus peace building?
Right. So these are urgent matters for them, and rather than focus on general peace building principles, maybe they want to go directly after climate change.
So you're trying to get a sense of where the young people are, and you're speculating that maybe they're trying to go directly to climate change that's very relevant to them versus towards peacemaking.
Right, and toward gun control.
And that they would want to go towards gun control.
Yeah, because they've lived in this culture of the shootings in the schools.
Yeah, because they have motivation to deal with gun control because they're growing up in the schools with that happening.
Yeah, whereas I grew up in the Cold War. I always thought that I was going to die from a nuclear bomb.
So you grew up in a different environment where it was the Cold War, and you were afraid of dying with a nuclear bomb, led to your peace interest.
Yes. So my goal was to end war.
And your goal was to end war.
Right. And I really got deeply involved in the peace movement when we went to war with Iraq.
And you really got involved in the peace movement during the war with Iraq.
Yes, there were mass demonstrations all over the world that did not stop the war. That was just heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking that there was all these movements, demonstrations against the war, and didn't have any effect.
I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I went to the top of one of the hotels, and you could see people. It was just San Francisco was blanketed with people.
Yeah, just looking down the streets in San Francisco, just blanketed with people. That there's just a lot of people there.
I was convinced we were going to stop that war.
And just seeing all those people, you were convinced you're going to stop the war.
Yeah. I'll stop there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll speak to Chad.
Hi.
Yeah, it's just you had mentioned you didn't have more to say, and I come to that state too where I kind of look inside myself and nothing is sort of bubbling up, And I'm sort of curious about that state where I don't have anything else to say.
Right. So you have the same issue where, you know, you go inside your head to see what am I going to talk about, and there's nothing bubbling up, and you're kind of curious on what it's like, what that state of being is like.
Yeah, there's something that just a connection I just remembered is, you know, in terms of public speaking, I was always concerned about public speaking, you know, a little anxiety about a lot of anxiety about public speaking, because I want something to authentically bubble up. And I'm afraid nothing will come up, and I'll just be standing there. All the eyes will be on me and nothing will authentically bubble up. And that causes anxiety, which makes sure that nothing will kind of bubble up. Yeah.
Right. So when you're engaging in public speaking, you want something authentic to come up and to come from yourself authentically. And yeah, and then you worry about that being able to come on under the spotlight, and it doesn't, and then anxiety makes it worse. And
Yeah, and then I'm like a deer in the headlights, right? It's like, oh,
right.
you know, it's totally frozen. So that sense, yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, then you're just frozen like a deer in the headlights. Yeah.
So I think the empathic way is to say whatever is bubbling up. So it's like, oh, I'm feeling some anxiety bubbling up here, you know, so saying what it is that I'm feeling sort of releases it, right?
So if you're using empathy as a tool here, we would actually say what we're feeling, what you're feeling, and, you know, saying that you feel anxiety come bubbling up. And
Yeah, I feel like a deer in the headlights. That's the state, you know, so I'm saying what it is that I'm, where I am, but I can't always name it is the problem. It's like, can I get back to sensing into it to name what's actually happening in
Right.
me?
so yeah, you just say what you're feeling, and, you know, in the moment. And then, although one of the problems can be trying to name what exactly that you are feeling.
Yeah, and to be able to name in myself, I'm sort of identifying with what you're saying, that is that sense where it's like there's almost like a blankness. It's like there's like a dark blankness, and I don't see an idea, because when an idea comes up, it usually has a form and some kind of an energy to it, and then I can put words to it. But sometimes there's just like a total blankness. It feels comfortable. I don't feel uncomfortable. I could just sit in that space. But that's sort of the space that, and I just sit there. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, being in that space kind of seems like this blank, formless, not anxiety, you know, not a bad place to be. But, you know, when you do have ideas, they take on, you know, qualities, forms, things that you can then express.
Yeah, and then the other thing I did, the thing you're saying about judgment and authority, that it could be, it got me thinking that judgment could be a form of authority control. That a judgment is sort of a suppressing something by judging it, which helps maintain a hierarchical authority process. So yeah.
Yeah. So you can, thinking about judgment and authoritarianism, you can see, yeah, judgment as a controlling portion of authoritarianism.
Yeah, it's a shutting down. Someone says something, you judge it, and that kind of shuts it down. So you kind of maintain a sense of authority, or it's a way of shutting down, versus empathy, which is, I hear what you're saying. Let me hear more, you know, sort of an approach.
Yeah. So judging shuts things down, and empathy is on the opposite end of that. You know, it's more opening up and listening.
And I guess that ties in with cancel culture too, right? It's like cancel culture is, I'm going to shut down what you have to say, versus tell me more. You know, let me get what's behind what it is that you're saying, and sort of hear more deeply. Yeah.
So you see cancel culture as kind of an extension of that idea, you know, where it's just shutting down instead of listening.
Yeah. I feel fully heard. We're out of time, so I'm going to bring us all back to the full room. So thank you, everyone, for this circle. Going to hit the close
And
all
thank you
room.
for being so easy to facilitate, everybody. I felt like the time really slowed down. Nobody went to their time, hardly anyone.
Good listeners. Everyone is very good.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, the others have about 40 seconds. I hit the button and then they come back. So they're probably in deep conversation, don't want to leave. Yeah, I really enjoyed all the topics too. So it was really interesting.
Welcome back, everybody. So we're going to do a debrief, and then Edwin is going to share next steps with everyone. We're going to put a link for feedback in the chat. So if you want to open that in your browser so that you can fill it out when you leave here, if you don't do it during while you're here. Edwin, do you want to put the link for the feedback form in the chat? Thank you. All right, so we're going to take, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Good. We're going to take a minute each to debrief. How was that for you taking part in the Empathy Circle? And I will start with Larry.
Well, you may have heard this before. I love the Empathy Circles. It's a wonderful opportunity to trust the process. Just trust and not try to control the circle. Just trust the flow. A beautiful opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Jonathan, 1 minute or less.
I had an opportunity to facilitate and was quite embarrassed at the end when we ended a little too early and had nothing to say. And it was a good experience. And I enjoyed being here today.
Thank you for facilitating, Jonathan. Lisa, would you like to share what it was like for you taking part today in a minute or less?
Sure. I think my main 2 points were that I'm leaving with today is that I can't control most things, and within that circle, that is why you do it. You know, you can't control the circle on who will call on you or what people will say. So I think it's like a really good lesson in control. And I think it really slowed down my brain, which is always a good thing. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Sally, would you like to share for a minute or less? Mute, Sally.
Did you call on me?
Yes, do you want to share for a minute or less? How it
Well,
was for you?
okay. I just wanted to add something. Never be self-judgmental. And that to be part of the package so that we as individuals are not in the beating ourselves mode over something we didn't do because we're perfect. We're developing perfection with communication.
Thank you, Sally. Bill?
Yeah, well, I just, really appreciate everybody who comes. The people who have done this for a while and hold the structure, and also new people who are willing to open their minds and try something a bit new and different. And just really appreciating it. I'm very frustrated about our society these days. but I feel that we create the solution to what ails us in these little circles. So I appreciate everybody who creates that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Listen.
Yeah, I'm resonating with so much of what other folks have said. I definitely felt like that flow of the circle, where even when you're kind of pausing for a moment, at least for me, even when I was pausing, like I wasn't necessarily thinking about what I was going to say next, but I was just pausing before continuing. And yeah, I also felt like this was a great example of solutions to what we're dealing with here in this world. So yeah, feeling really good and grateful.
Chad?
Yeah, it's my first one, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate the process and how the order of operations, I guess. For me, just speaking is the most anxiety producing stage of it, and that it comes after listening is a good thing, because I think if I had to go right to active listening after that, I would probably not hear much.
Hey, Chad. Valerie?
So I really enjoyed meeting new people, and I really resonated with pretty much like everything everyone had said in their contribution. I really liked what Hyacinth had said about going out into the world and meeting new people who we're sharing this space with, this earth with, this life with. It just, to me, I know that it's a very unorthodox point of view, but it really reinforces to me just the fact that there's no difference between young and old, and that's all just a concept, and that the way that we categorize people is just kind of shameful, and takes us away from actually reaching out and just being one with each other as human beings rather than as numbers. And so yeah, that's just a really nice takeaway for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie, for facilitating today also.
It's fun.
So yeah, the empathy circles, it always amazes me. In the beginning, I'm like, we've got an hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes. How are we going to talk that long? And then by the end of it, it's like, okay, how did that go by so fast? So it was a very smooth, easy circle and very interesting topic. So I really appreciate everybody that was in our circle today. And Edwin, do you want to debrief and then talk about next steps?
Okay. I always enjoy meeting new people. That kind of came up as a topic. I think it's core to a culture of empathy, reaching out to people who are different than oneself and others. And I really enjoy it. It enriches my life, kind of makes it just all the different feelings and values that come up really expands my life. So I really appreciate that. And also feel a lot of hope. It's, I think, a culture of empathy. It just happens one dialogue, one empathy circle at a time. So it just feels like a constructive, like I'm doing something constructive, and grateful for everyone taking part. Just in terms of next steps, I'm going to put in, there's some links here. The first one is a list of upcoming circles. So we have empathy circles on Friday. On Thursday is the empathy circle that Bill is doing for how to bring empathy circles into the schools. Do you want to say anything about that, Bill?
Sure. It's about adapting the empathy circle practice, how to integrate it into the limited time in a school day and into the curriculum. And if you're interested, please join. Thanks.
Thanks. And then on Fridays, Larry has a group too. So if you have multiple circles during the week that you can take part in, so you can take part in that one. And there's a link there to the full schedule. Valerie, you had something? Did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that so I attend Bill's empathy in schools, and being at a university, like I'm studying philosophy and psychology, and I've been interested in bringing empathy circles to the university. It's very difficult, extremely difficult where I am. And he's been very helpful in the sense that it's not just about sort of elementary school level, it's at any educational levels. So just wanted to point that out.
Great. And then there's the Friday one that Larry does. And then we have this Saturday one, which Kathy is hosting. Then there's also a link there to the training for the next, facilitators training. So the 5-week course, you can click on that, and there's sign up information, as was mentioned, that starts October 24th. And then the last link there is to fill out a feedback form. So for this, Bill posted this, I'll post this as the last link here. So if you could click on that link to fill out the feedback form, you just click on it and you can add your name and contact info, and we can add you to our email list to just so you can know about upcoming events. We have an email list with about 500 people or so. We send out periodic updates for upcoming empathy cafes and trainings and various stuff like that. So if you fill out that form, we can get your feedback on this cafe today, as well as add you to that email list. So that's all I've got today. Kathy, is there, you want to close us out? Anything, this last notes?
Yes, thank you all for being here.
Oh, Sally
For
had her
being-
hand up. Sorry, I didn't see that.
Well, good. Sally?
Edwin, for the definition of empathy, I don't know what your timeline is, and will everyone be able to well, not be involved in the development, but actually attend that? And how much are you charging?
Oh, we're not at the course. That's another project. It's a project to develop a training. So that's not like an open group for people. So kind of like a closed development group. Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. Come back next Saturday. Think about taking a training, especially if you love today. You can get a lot of practice facilitating through the training, and come here and facilitate your own circles and continue to spread empathy. So hopefully we'll see you all next week. And remember to
Okay.
fill out the feedback form.
Yeah,
Back-
and jazz
jazz
hands, like do
hands.
jazz hands just for goodbye. So see, hey, Lisa, we see you, and Sally. Great, got a picture of everyone. So, all right, everybody. See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Edwin.